It is long past midnight, and the glowing screens around us are filled with images of fire and friction. If you look at the news feeds right now, you will see reports of massive explosions across the coastal cities of the Strait of Hormuz. We are reading about direct military interventions, tactical drone strikes, targeted naval vessels, and an incredibly fragile ceasefire showing its deep structural cracks. I remember when I first started tracking global macros, a headline like this would have sent my heart rate into absolute overdrive. I would have opened my brokerage account at 2 a.m. staring at the futures market, trying to guess how oil prices would react by the opening bell. I thought that to be a successful investor, you had to be an amateur general, a political analyst, and a lightning fast trader all at once. I felt this intense, frantic pressure to do something with my money before the rest of the world figured out the next move. But tonight, looking at these escalating reports, I want us to take a collective deep breath, step back from the edge of the screen, and talk about the mathematics of survival. I am 26 years old, and the only reason I am sitting here with my first $100,000 safely stored in productive assets is because I learned to stop reacting to the noise. I realize that trying to trade geopolitical friction is not a wealth strategy. It is just a socially acceptable way of gambling with your future. When the United States military confirms it has targeted missile launch sites and Iranian speedboats near Larak Island, the initial instinct of the retail market is pure, unadulterated panic. People start hoarding cash, shorting tech stocks, or buying hyper-volatile defense options, thinking they can outsmart a multi-trillion-dollar institutional machine. I made those exact mistakes during my early 20s, thinking my little laptop and my charting software gave me an edge over algorithmic trading desks. It was a complete illusion, a costly lesson that taught me that the house always wins when you play their game on their timeline. Let us actually look at the structural reality of what is happening in the world, because the underlying physics of capital never changes. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a geographic location on a map, it is the primary economic choke point of the modern world, when naval vessels are eliminated and sea-to-air missile sites are engaged near Bandar Abbas. It does not just disrupt shipping logs, it alters the baseline cost of human existence. Every single thing you touch, from the fuel in your car to the plastic in your keyboard to the supply chain of the food on your table, is tied directly to the safety of those narrow waters. If your entire financial plan relies on the global order remaining peaceful, stable, and perfectly predictable for the next 10 years, you are playing a game with mathematically catastrophic odds. The reality of our era is that volatility is no longer an anomaly, it is a baseline certainty. But when you accept chaos as a constant variable in your equation, you completely stop checking the hourly news to decide what to do with your paycheck. You realize that a fortress is not built after the storm hits. It is constructed during the quiet, boring days when everyone else is distracted by cheap entertainment. Let us look at how the crowd is behaving right now. While these massive logistical lines are being threatened, the political arena is putting on an absolute theater. We see headlines about UFC stadiums being constructed on the White House lawn, public posturing over enriched uranium, and contradictory statements about $12 billion backroom deals. The media wants you completely locked into this narrative loop because your emotional attention is their primary source of monetization. They need you angry. They need you terrified. And the market needs your liquidity to feed the institutional liquidation machines. Your only real job as a sober, self-controlled investor is to look at this circus and calmly refuse to participate. We have to embrace the unglamorous truth that true wealth is accumulated in the quiet, empty spaces between global panics. It is built by automating a high savings rate, identifying cash, flowing assets that possess undeniable real-world utility, and letting the clean math of compounding work uninterrupted over thousands of days. I remember sitting at my desk a few years ago with less than $5,000 to my name, watching my friends make quick fortunes on speculative digital assets and meme options. I felt like a complete background character, an overly cautious idiot who was missing out on the easiest wealth generation window in human history. I was tracking every single dollar I spent on basic groceries, putting away small sums into index funds, and working 12 hours a day to increase my primary income. It felt completely stagnant, like trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. But that exact feeling of boredom and slow progress is the ultimate filter of the financial system. It screens out the impatient, the emotional, and the undisciplined, leaving the compounding returns for those who can withstand the psychological weight of waiting. When the world experiences an energy shock or an infrastructure disruption, global supply lines compress, and fiat currencies begin to lose their real purchasing power at an accelerating rate. If you keep your entire net worth sitting in a low-yield checking account, you are quietly letting your labor dissolve under the weight of structural inflation. But if you run to the opposite extreme, chasing speculative growth stories to outrun that inflation, you risk losing half your capital in a single macro correction. The rational, sober middle ground is to find businesses and assets that hold true pricing power, a company that manufactures the agricultural equipment required to feed populations, or a utility network that delivers water to a major city, or real estate that provides essential shelter. These things do not care about political negotiations or naval skirmishes. Their value is rooted in human necessity, not human sentiment. Human sentiment changes 3 times a day based on a social media post, but human necessity remains entirely unchanged through every conflict, recession, and policy shift in history. Let us talk about the concept of asymmetric risk management, which is the foundational pillar of wealth defense. An asymmetric bet is a scenario where your downside is limited, fixed, and completely known, but your upside is massive or mathematically inevitable over time. Most young investors do the exact opposite because they operate out of a state of manufactured urgency. They risk $10,000 of hard-earned post-tax capital to potentially make $3,000 on a volatile tech stock option before earnings. They are trading real, unrecoverable hours of their finite lives for a brief spike of dopamine. When you build your capital using the boring method, your downside is completely insulated by a deep cash reserve and an intentionally low fixed cost lifestyle. Your upside is guaranteed by the collective productivity of human ingenuity over long horizons. Let us look at how compounding actually functions in reality, because textbooks love to show those beautiful, flawless exponential curves that soar into the heavens after 30 years. What they never tell you is that the first 5 years of that curve look like a completely flat, dead line. You sacrifice your weekends, you cut your luxury spending, you invest $20,000, and at the end of 12 months, your portfolio has generated a measly $1,400 in returns. You look at that number and think to yourself that this entire process is a scam, that you should have just bought the luxury car or taken the overpriced vacation. But if you can survive that psychological dead zone, if you can keep feeding the machine month after month without demanding immediate validation, the math quietly shifts. There comes a day where the automated returns on your portfolio exceed your monthly living expenses. That is the moment true financial sovereignty clicks into place, and once you breathe that air, you will never trade your peace for a speculative gamble ever again. Look at the geographic and tactical realities outlined in these breaking military reports. When FPV drones and precise missile systems shut down routes, it demonstrates that physical concentrations of risk are incredibly dangerous. In personal finance, most people map out their lives exactly like those flawed defense perimeters. They build imaginary safety zones, assuming their corporate job will always exist, their health will always be flawless, and their paper assets will always trade at a premium because a financial planner told them so. Then a sudden systemic credit squeeze or a major energy crisis occurs, and they realize their entire buffer zone was a complete fiction. The ultimate takeaway from global volatility is that true control is exceptionally rare. And the only margin of safety that matters is the one you build with structural redundancy. That means holding assets with zero counterparty risk, assets that do not require a bank to stay solvent or a grid to remain online. For them to retain their intrinsic value, we are living through a massive generational calibration of the global macroeconomic order. And this process is going to remain incredibly loud, chaotic, and stressful for years to come. There will be more emergency defense strikes, more collapse negotiations, and more sudden supply chain panics. Every single one of these moments will be weaponized by the media to make you act impulsively, to make you trade, and to make you liquidate your long-term plans. Your only priority, sitting across from me in the quiet of this night, is to maintain absolute discipline over your inputs. We must accept that wealth is not built on the main stage of global history. It is built in the shadows, in the unsexy details of a balanced spreadsheet. It is built by maintaining a lifestyle that costs significantly less than you earn, using the excess capital to purchase premium assets. When the rest of the world is selling in a panic and letting time do the heavy lifting, it will never make you look cool at a party. It will never give you a flashy screenshot to post online, and it will absolutely not make you a millionaire by next month. But it is the only methodology that carries a mathematical certainty of long-term success. As we watch these historic events unfold across the maritime borders of the world, do not let the chaos outside compromise your internal stability. Focus entirely on what is within your direct control, fix your personal balance sheet, protect your downside, and let the rest of the world chase the noise while you build your fortress. In reality, thank you for spending these quiet moments with me tonight. Keep your mind clear, stay completely rational, and let us focus on the numbers that do not lie.